Well, g'day, Harbour Church. This is Tom Batty, and today this is kind of exciting because we're picking up at some of my favourite verses of all of Hebrews. We're looking at Hebrews chapter 4:14. I know that's pretty little, through to 6:3, and we've just been encouraged in the last chapter, in chapter 4, to strive to enter into God's rest and to not harden our hearts. And so now we move into this one. Now, as usual, it starts with a therefore, but most of the therefores that we've looked at in the last time were pointing backwards. Therefore, in light of what we've heard, blah, 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 let's do this. But this therefore isn't actually pointing backwards, it's pointing forwards. Can you see that? Therefore, since we have a great high priest. So, just keep that in mind. I'll still do a similar thing and just pop it underneath. But he says, therefore, since we have a great high priest, tell us something about that, and he tells us this high priest has ascended into heaven, and he's got a name as well, Jesus the Son of God. Then he's going to tell us to do something with that. So like we've been working with the colours before, this is a theological statement, isn't it? We have a great high priest, and he's ascended into heaven, and his name is Jesus, and this is perhaps one of the most important theological statements of the entire book, and you see more of this in chapter 10 verse 18. You can look that up if you want, but because it's so significant, let's make it bold and enormous and purple, and this idea of Jesus being our great high priest is basically, this leads us into chapter 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 really, where it's going to talk about how Jesus is our superior high priest and he offers the superior offering. And he's now in heaven. So that's really going to set up the major section, the major argument of the next few bits of Hebrews. Then, in light of this, the author tells us to do something. And what is that? It is to hold firmly to the faith we profess. Now this could be summarized as one of the main lines of the entire letter, the persevere as a Christian. So we'll put it as a similar size to there, but I ask you, what do you reckon? Should that be green or should that be red? Is this something that we do or is this something that we don't do? I'm going with green. I mean, red. But it's a little bit difficult, isn't it? Because holding firm is something that we do, but it's a not moving thing. So to catch that tension, I'll italicize it. So it kind of looks like it's running, if you want. But anyway, you can discuss which way you would have gone with that in your growth groups. So since we've got a great high priest, hold firmly, don't let go, to the faith that we profess. Why should we be able to do that? He gives us a reason, which is something to do with Jesus. And because it's to do with Jesus, I'll line it up, see how it's there and there. So I'll put it just here. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to feel sympathy for our weaknesses. Yeah, that's right. As we learnt in the other chapters, Jesus has entered into our human situation and shared our flesh. So, and the contrast is, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin. Yeah, love that. Okay, so what's he going to tell us to do now? Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence. Okay, so can you see how that is also a command that he's giving us now? And this command, while the other one was, let's make it a little bit bigger, while the other one was like a hold fast, this one, can you see how there's a bit of a different movement there? And so to capture that, I'm going to make it green. Hold fast to the faith that you've got, don't move, but then approach God's throne of grace with confidence. Now, what I'm going to do here is just make confidence a tiny little bit smaller, because can you notice that the sentence works without having with confidence there? Let us then approach God's throne of grace. Finish it. It still works. But the author wanted to say with confidence, and he's able to say that because of the high priest that we've got there. So even though it's not grammatically necessary, which is why I've made it smaller, it is theologically significant, and he couldn't say this sentence without adding in this line. Okay, and he gives us a reason. Let us approach God's throne of grace, so that we may, a couple of things, receive mercy. Okay, we will miss out on getting what we do deserve. And the other one, how should we line that up there? Yeah, let's line receive and find underneath each other. So receive mercy and find grace. Okay, so that's if mercy is missing out on what we do deserve, grace is getting the thing that we don't deserve. And again, it's to help us in our time of need. And I love the way that he uses time of need. And it's not just like, oh, I've run out of petrol, now I need mercy and grace. It's like, no, you've got the judgment of God hanging over your head. You need mercy and grace. I think that's what he's talking about there. Okay, so this section here, therefore, we've got a great high priest. So do two things: hold fast and approach God's throne of grace. These three verses are the hinge point between all that we've done so far in the first 3 and a bit chapters and all that will happen in the next few chapters leading up to chapter 10, as it kind of summarizes what we have done, and it leads us into this big idea of Jesus being our high priest who offers the perfect sacrifice. But more of that to come. Now, he's going to tell us a little bit about high priests and educate us here. So now that we know that Jesus is our perfect high priest, so I'll line this up over here. That seems like a reasonable spot to pop it. He's going to tell us a few things about that, and I might even put a space in between here so that we can see that all of this section stands on its own. And I might even, I'll tell you what, instead of making all of this smaller, easier way will be just to make that a little bit bigger, okay, and that way we should be able to see significance there. So, next one, every high priest is selected from among the people, thank you, and is appointed to represent the people in matters related to God. Really, this should go on one line, and I'll tell you what, how about I make all of this just a little bit smaller, just so that I can figure out how to do that in a second. So every high priest is selected from among the people and is appointed to do two things. Number one, to represent the people in matters related to God. It still doesn't fit on the one line. Let me try and break it up somewhere here. Every high priest is selected from among the people. Okay, this is a new thought, so I'll just put this underneath and we can just kind of pretend that it's on one line. Alright, every high priest is selected from among the people and is appointed to represent the people in matters related to God. And the second thing that he does as a representative is to, I'll put the twos underneath each other so you can see that they're the two things that the high priest is doing, and to offer gifts and sacrifices for sins. And the human high priest is able to do this gently because he... with those who are ignorant and going astray. Why is he able to do this? Because he's a chump as well, just like us. Since he himself is subject to weakness. Okay, so because of his weakness, in that he's sinful, like you and me, this is why he has to offer sacrifices for his own sins. And then once he's done that, then he's able to make sacrifices for the sins of the people. Okay, makes sense? I hope so. Now, the idea is that no one takes this honor on himself. You can't appoint yourself high priest, but he receives it when he is called by God. So I'll put that underneath because it's a contrasting idea, just like Aaron was. Okay. Now, actually, I'll just keep that bit together there. Now he's talked about human high priest. Now he's going to talk about Jesus. Okay. So, in the same way, Christ did not take on himself glory of becoming high priest, okay? But God said to him, "You are my son." He was appointed. Today, you have become. I've become your father. In another place, he says, "You are a priest forever." He was appointed in the order of Melchizedek, so not just an old priest, but a king priest. And so he's going to tell us that. During the days of Jesus' life on earth, he offered prayers and petitions. Okay, you see that? Doing the same thing that the other prayers did, offering gifts and sacrifice for sins. But so he's kind of going in between God. With fervent cries and tears. Who to? Offered up prayers. There we go. To the one who could save him from death. And Jesus was heard. I'll put it just underneath he offered, because these are the things that he's doing. So during Jesus' days on earth, he did what? He offered up prayers, offered up prayers, and the other thing he did was he was heard because of his reverent submission. and son, let's put it there, son though he was, he learnt obedience from what he suffered. That'll be a fun one to discuss in growth groups. And once made perfect, I'll put it underneath. Well, that's tracking really slowly because anyway. And once made perfect, he became the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him. And the final thing about Jesus, this high priest, was that, and he was designated by God to be high priest in the order of Melchizedek. Okay, so that's the big idea that he's introducing so far. Okay, Jesus is the great high priest, and he's different to human high priests because every other high priests, they're dodgy, they sin. But Jesus was different. He was appointed in the same way, but he's the Son, and he is perfect through suffering. Now, this is interesting because he gets on a tangent, and it's a really interesting tangent, because if we hold on to this idea of Melchizedek here, he drops this in right now, but he'll pick it up later on in the next chapter, I think it is. But now he goes on a little tangent about their spiritual maturity, and he says, look, and so because it's a tangent, I'll just put it over here on this margin, but you can know that it's different, and he's having a little rant here. He says, we have much to say about this, but it's hard to make clear because you no longer try to understand. In fact, by this time, you ought to be teachers. So obviously they've been listening to this for a while. You need someone to teach you the elementary truths of God's word all over again. Okay, let's summarize that. You need milk, not solid food. For anyone who lives on milk, being still an infant, is not acquainted with the teaching about righteousness. But solid food is for the mature, who by constant use have trained themselves to distinguish good from evil. So training ourselves in righteousness is all to do with wisdom. And so he gives them a big instruction here. Therefore, let us move beyond the elementary teachings about Christ and be taken forward to maturity. Okay, here, let's keep that bold, make that a little bit bigger. And it's a two-part instruction. Let us move beyond the elementary teachings about Christ. So I'll make that red. Don't do this, but do be taken forward onto maturity. Oop, I wanted that to be green. Sorry. And I gather that the way that you do this is by constant training yourself to distinguish good from evil and listening to God through the Word. And so he says, don't taking forward to maturity, not laying again the foundation of. Okay, now he's going to list all of the things that are basic to the faith. Okay, that makes sense. Repentance from acts that lead to death. Yep, that makes sense. Faith in God. Yeah, that's pretty basic. Instruction about cleansing rites. Okay, that might be confusing for us. The laying on of hands, again, might need a bit of discussion. Resurrection of the dead, yeah, that's basic. And eternal judgment, that is basic to the Christian doctrine. And so he concludes, and God permitting, we will do so. That is, move beyond the elementary teachings and be taken forward to maturity. But just know that all of this is a tangent, because he's annoyed that these guys don't understand all of the stuff that he's talking about up here. So that is the big picture of Hebrews chapter 4, 14 through to 6:3. Catch you later.